Oh, yeah. I'm telling you this. Hey everyone, we are live and on the Acquisition IQ National Tour. We're starting here in Reno, Nevada. We're at a wonderful location called the Zephyr Wine Bar here in Reno. And I'm going to bring up here in just a second the founders of this wonderful establishment. And a little bit later, you're going to also be joined with John Curtin, the founder of Now Exit. He's going to be helping you as a small business owner learn how to create maximal value for your business upon your exit. I'm going to touch on real quick the Acquisition IQ National Tour, the Acquisition IQ Network, and then also Aquacon or Acquisition Conference, where we aggregate entrepreneurs, investors, people that are wanting to learn how to buy companies, sell companies, and fund companies, all for an experience that you're not going to want to miss on September 3rd in Salt Lake City. We began to create Acquisition IQ Network as a solid network to be able to help provide access to education, resources, and tools for you as a small business owner to be able to really help you collapse time and increase your overall access to good relationships that will help you with your business, your life, and also your business. So without further ado, I just want to say welcome to the Acquisition IQ National Tour, and let's welcome to the stage here our good friends at Zephyr Wine Bar. So what is your name?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Walker.
Jennifer, nice to meet you, and thank you so much for opening this beautiful place for us. And what's your name?
Andre Walker.
Andre Walker. And you guys opened the Zephyr Wine Bar. Why did you open this place?
Well, Andre will probably explain a little bit, but he did grow up in Reno and after leaving Reno about 30 years and coming back to town and moving into an area called South Reno, which really wasn't really a farm. When he left here, there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of beautiful communities here, and in terms of food and beverage. So we felt like there was a real opportunity. We literally drove down the street and saw an artist rendering from this beautiful space they were building here, and immediately there was a huge opportunity to build something new and something that area was looking for.
Well, I know too, based on our conversation, you said you've had experience in events and coordination. Well, you've got to have a passion too behind that, bringing people together.
Yes, that is true. Community, networking, those are all key priorities to us. That was what I did. I worked in Silicon Valley. And then I went to work for my own startup, not my own startup, I went on my own journey with the startup, and I had to people at that point and doing events all around the world. And there's something that remains true, which is community is really everything. Even in a digital world, it's still face-to-face meetings, connecting with people, but it's all about connection.
What else you got? Would like to share more?
It's hard to follow it as usual, but in terms of starting this business in this town, and growing up here, seeing get involved during it's great to come back and create something that
Well, we're obviously fortunate factor as well being here in this city and be able to launch the national tour. We're excited for that. We're excited for your growth. For the last 20 months, you guys have really done significant. You're having that recurring business model as well. You're providing more and more types of wine and also experiences. And is there anything more about where you guys are actually coming, where you're growing? Do you have any future statement for you?
Well, I'll say one thing and then I'll let Andre talk about the membership program. But we are passionate about wine. I've been studying wine globally through David Glancy and Wine School. I've been studying with him for about 15 years globally. Number of wine certifications and all that, but we really love the small family wineries here. So always seeing approaches, a lot of the wines that we bring in, sometimes they're only 200 or 300 pieces worldwide available. We snatch those little gems up, and I think the thing that's making me most excited about the reception we've gotten here is the thirst for learning and knowledge and discovery of wine.
Tell me.
Because there really are, we love wine education here. This is our wine education room. I'm going to talk a little bit more, but the second thing that we've added as we've grown as a business is music and supporting the local arts community. So we've been doing live music here for about 15 or 20 months, maybe 16 open, and that's really taken off such that we've added 2 additional nights of live music. But we love being able to have a incredible collection of musicians here in Reno, which has been fantastic to discover. And then we're starting artist takeover. First Friday of each month, we'll have a local artist come in and take on all that they want to take, and artist reception where you get to meet artists themselves, enjoy some live music and wine. And so we love, again, this networking with the community and having that conversation with other businesses.
Sounds like you're about to bring your own coffee.
I think that's a good idea.
So what's the future?
Oh, well, the future is bright. Yes. As you mentioned, we have a recurring music part of our music program, program, that customers come back to us, come back and run. We're thrilled about those programs and watching them grow. Also looking forward to more adventures in the future where we're actually starting to our customers adventures domestically and internationally.
Well, experience is everything, and thank you guys for allowing us to use your space. It's very nice here. So we're gonna move on to the next portion. The next portion of our presentation and all of the live experience. And as what we're really focused on is, of course, is with small business owners, getting to a point where you want to either one acquire a company. What does that really take? How do I put together a financial stack that's going to beneficial to me, to my company, and then also how do we create value with our company so that we can exit for maximum value? That's a lot of what we've talked with John Curtin with Now Exit. And again, we're excited to be able to welcome John Curtin with Now Exit to the stage, share with you a little bit of his knowledge and wisdom around exiting for maximum value.
Awesome. It's exciting to be here. This is my first time in Reno, except for wine bar. It's very, very cool. And coming down here if you ever get the chance. I talk a lot. I talk all over the world, CEO groups, and people that are looking to be able to prepare their business for the best value sale, whether that's the most money or whether that's setting yourself up for what you see as your future. I would dive into this, and I'd tell you, we joke a lot that this is a 12-hour presentation. We boiled into 3 hours for Vistage, and now we're going to do it in half an hour. So I'll be quick, then we'll get through all the high points. My background in preparing companies for sale is working as a founder many times, raising, growing, selling, and then being able to be in all of the grind with business owners as they get ready to sell and they start thinking about all the things they would have done if they had known on their last day what would make the company the most valuable. They wish they had. So I've assisted hundreds of companies from inception to completion. We've seen all of the different ways you can have end of transaction battles and how to avoid them. And we are experts in creating uncontested value. And I'll maybe throw in a deal story or two on why things we've seen and why they were uncontested and able to sell for multiples that in one case setting the record. The most important way to simplify getting your business ready for sale and the process of selling it falls into 2 major levels, right? And that's one, to sell the future, what the future looks like for your business, how great it is, all of the organic opportunities to grow within your scope, and then all of the inorganic opportunities, who'd you buy and why, And that's really, really important to being able to drive the value of the sale. The second bucket is not more important, but comes first. And that's lowering the perception of risk for buyers. So when you're working with an investment bank and you wonder, what is an investment banker? And what is this team of M&A lawyers, wealth managers, CPAs all do? Well, we play most of the time in this area. Before we ever go to market, we are making accounting diligence through a quality of earnings, legal diligence through liability documentation, putting a dollar value on it, preparing a data room, and then business diligence, building out. You can show that you can organically and inorganically double or triple, but you have the infrastructure to be able to grow at that speed, right? So we spend a lot of our time lowering the perception of risk so that we put the business owner in a position along with us to sell that future. If you learn nothing else from today, those are the two most important things to think about. All activities in an acquisition fall into. I know there's a lot of people, especially in kind of 60 and plus age group, that it's their baby. They grew it from the very bottom, right? They're holding on for dear life. Maybe they've, lost 3 marriages trying to grow a business. It's really serious and really hard to grow a business. And I just want to tell you, having a person in your corner, having a third party to speak on your behalf, to fight for you, and who's done it hundreds of times, there's no way to replace it. So I'll move on. There's 7 key areas, all of which fall into those 2 buckets, that you really need to start thinking about from a principles perspective on how you can sell your business for the highest value, right? The first 2, who is your CEO and can your company run without you, are corollaries of each other. If you are the operator and you're making sure the trains go out on time day to day, you will never be able to sell and remove yourself. You also are very unlikely to be able to scale radically, especially if you're not used to being a professional CEO, right? As we start to think about that, we think about who can I put in my place? How can I prepare them? How can I systematize and put process in place so that I could have someone replace me as CEO, replace me in sales, and in every area. Right? And we'll talk a little bit more about systemization and professionalization as we get to these bottom 2. But I'd like to note that all 7 of these things will increase the valuation from the bottom of what you might get to the top of what you might justify. But there's a couple things I'm going to talk about that throw this whole matrix into the wash. The third one on this list, do you have good customer churn rate? Could be the difference between 3xing or 4xing the value of your business at sale with the exact same revenue. I'll explain that real quick. Churn rate, right, is the rate at which you have to replace customers in a given year, and it's usually averaged over 5 years. So, best in the world, SaaS company, recurring revenue, it's under contract, right? They maybe lose 2 to 5% of their customers in any given year that they have to replace before they grow it. I imagine most of the people I'm talking to do not sit in a place where they have SaaS-like recurring revenue. And so the big encouragement there that I work with everybody I talk to is the recurring revenue, right? Any business can find a way to have either recurring revenue or to lower the churn rate of your customers over a period of 3 to 5 years. And that literally could increase the value 2, 3, 4 times, because $1 of recurring revenue is worth $2, $3, or $4 of one-time revenue. As we jump to employee retention rate, I think a lot of business owners are surprised by this. But the first principle here is, what are you selling when you sell your business, right? And the answer is three things. You're selling customers, you're selling your employees, and your processes, and your IP. Most people understand that someone would want to buy their customers. Many business owners don't recognize that if you're a scaled, professionalized business, but you have constant employee turnover, there is a significant worry to have it reduce the perception of risk in your business, right? They lose their employees after acquisition. Most companies will fall. The third part of that stool I mentioned goes along with employee retention rates, because good employees want to know what is success and what is failure and what is my job, right? And that gets to process. Building a process for how you do the job before you hire someone to do it, and documenting constant religious training around that process. Of the kind of three legs of the stool, customers, employees, and process, so many business owners discount process and their IP around that and the training program they created as if it's $0, when in fact the buyer sees that as a huge portion of your value. You sit as one of the 1% of 1% of companies who made it past the first year, who made it past the second year, who scaled so far that you're not only profitable, you're in the zone of being acquired by a buyer. And if you've done that, there's a good reason, right? You have a process that works, and you need to document that, get it all out of your head, and be in a position to have good employee retention, because they know what success is. The next on that list, customer concentration, right? I have all of these great customers. They've been with me for a long time, but one customer makes up maybe 20, 25% more of my revenue. I would assume you're not going to go get rid of your biggest customer, because that would be dumb. What you want to do is be able to move out of customer concentration by focusing on activity-based sales, right? Again, we are tearing through this presentation in kind of under half hour time period. All of these things can be dug into, and I absolutely welcome anyone to contact me. There'll be a slide at the end to really dig into it. But understanding how to measure what you're doing, and the shortest distance from an introduction to a sale. We'll talk a lot about that. In any case, if you are over 20, 25% of your revenue with one customer, or your top 10 customers make up more than 50% of your revenue, you have a customer concentration problem, right? Of all of these items that would make you go from the bottom of the range of value to the top, and then the one that can move your entire range up, customer churn. Customer concentration could literally kill you. It could just be not possible to sell, depending on how bad that is, right? I want to move on very quickly to kind of my jam as a career accountant, right? We birthed out of an accounting firm, so we're really, really focused on not just the sales element and being able to create a lot of competition, but also fighting in the details. And you'll understand what I mean on this next slide, but there's a lot of details to fight after you figure out your total enterprise value. So you have clean, accurate, and reliable financials and data. Almost everyone we talk to in the first conversation says, yeah, we're tight, we're clean. That's not the case with almost everyone, right? And you produce your financials for the end of the month or the end of the quarter within, say, 10 days at the end of that period, right? Financials, P&L, balance sheet, statement of cash flow. And further, do you know what payroll is going to be more often than every 2 weeks, right? You have a handle on the financials, how you've grown, why, and how you are tracking to what I mentioned above, your organic growth plan and how you would acquire inorganically. When you measure now, I want to mention another valuation change that doesn't make this on the list, right? And that is in a private equity roll-up strategy. As many people have probably heard, private equity company buys one large, well-run, process-driven, tech-enabled company in the industry. Then they buy a whole bunch of smaller companies, hang them under that platform, right? To become a platform means you have all of the processes in place to be able to scale, and you are able to be best in class financials, KPI, etc. So the big question there is, can you close within 10 days? And do you have a handle on every area of your financials? Ending with the last, which is very similar to the financials, you have accurate KPIs that drive the business in every department, right? As we're talking about good employee retention rates, we talk about how they want to know what success is, they want to know what failure is, and they want to have a process to follow. They're not entrepreneurs, right? They chose to put in a different class, and they definitely want to know what is the process. Right? Measuring how you're tracking to those processes and everyone's performance in every department and every area of the business is one of the most key parts of building a professional business, and definitely one of the most important items in getting the highest valuation from a buyer. Specific to private equity, we have the experience as many advisors and business owners selling to. Sometimes we'll be asked, hey, can you give me the top 10 customers and the gross margin average over the last 5 years? We'll ask at 7, 8 p.m. They'll say, can you have it on the 8 a.m. call tomorrow morning? They kind of just want to see if we can do that, and we don't show up to the call having worked all night long, right? They're really testing for weakness because they need to know, you know what success is in your measure. I also would mention these KPIs are fun, right? This is how I know. In the sales department, it's very easy. I know because I've done X amount of sales. I'm the champion in the group of that month. But for your accountants, is it measured that they're closing every 10 days? They saved you money on renegotiating working capital, right? We want to really make this fun and measure something in every area of the business to show we have control over it, and also to incentivize all that good behavior we want to do when we can no longer watch the 5 people on the changing gears for a moment. All of those things are things you should jot down, you should think about. These are principles in selling. Now I'm going to move to how does evaluation actually work, right? In evaluation, you can see there's a number of methods. There'll be asset values, there'll be discounted cash flows, and then there's EBITDA, which really is the most commonly used metric. Meaning if we run your EBITDA multiples, right? I'll talk about that in a second. We're within a hair's breadth of what a buyer is going to come in initially. All of your buyers are probably going to come in the same range because this is very much like an MLS in real estate, right? You would go on, you would find out kind of business, same area, similar kind of revenue, and be able to say companies in the past have sold this. EBITDA, or earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, is only a useful metric for this specifically, right? EBITDA, if you're using to run your business, is like Charlie Munger says, bullshit earnings, right? It is not at all useful in any other area, but to compare two companies of differing debt levels in differing jurisdictions and differing asset levels to be able to see what the cash flow is after you add back the interest payments, their tax situation, and the depreciation and amortization. It's very good at that. And that's why they use it. You can see at that top, that green band, we've averaged some of these methods. And we know that this company, all day, every day, should sell between 86 and 156 million, right? As a 10.3 to 15 times EBITDA. And that's what these companies have been selling at. Now, if we want to get from the bottom to the top, all the things I talked about, professionalization have to be there. You have to start. In addition to this, the real value of an investment banker is to create a very competitive process so that we can beat the top of that ring, right? When people say to me, oh, I could sell my business or I could myself or I could use just my lawyer and I could sell it. Yeah, you probably will get somewhere at the bottom of that range, right? And then having 12, 15, 20 offers end up creating enough competition to push you to the top of the range. And then finally, being able to come out with your organic growth plan, your inorganic growth plan, and the proof that you can scale gets you past your enterprise value into a market value that is considerably higher than these multiples. So that's great. That's how a company is valued. But let's talk a little bit about how much money actually goes in my pocket, right? There's your enterprise value up there. Your adjusted EBITDA times your multiple. We pull out of, in this case, it's called PitchBook, right? The database. And we get your enterprise value. And that's where you're at the barbecue and your friend says, I sold my company for $100 million, right? Did they get $100 million? No, not exactly. That is not how it works. So if we slide enterprise value down here, the second band, the second line on this slide is a layout of cash-free debt, right? And that is a sale free of cash and free of debt. What does that mean? So we slide that enterprise value down there, and then you have debts, right, that are going to get removed. Any debt you have, they're either going to assume or pay off, and that comes out of the cash that you'll be given to close. I would note that and liabilities is a big and, because especially as accounting rules have changed, there is a lot of things in that liability, unearned revenue, lease accounting, a lot of times is on the balance sheet right now. Some of that will be removed. And that's a whole other process that we would have to talk about in another engagement, but kind of the art and science of investment banking for making sure we get you the highest value. And after we remove the effect of debt and liabilities, we're going to leave behind working capital, right? This is the money you have to leave behind for the avoidance of doubt, run the business over, say, a 30, 60, 90 days, whatever your business cycle is, and be able to ensure that the company continues working optimally. That may discount your receivables. They may assume some payables are going to come out of nowhere. If you have any kind of lawsuit, sometimes those find their way in there, kind of assumption for that. And I would just mention, I have PEG under there, because in a PEG, you decide on a number, but after the measurement period, you go back and remeasure it, and one party or other gets the difference in money. So many people, when they sell, forget to use a swinging peg and put a static working capital number. Just would highly recommend that you avoid that, because that breaks this kind of elegant calculation that if anybody does any shenanigans, will offset in the final closing gains, right? We'll move on. And finally, you get to keep excess cash, so you see the plus. So I have my enterprise value, right, 100 million. I have 10 million in debts and liabilities, and I have to leave $10 million of working capital, right? But I have $20 million on the balance sheet. I'm back to 100 million take home. You can imagine, generally, the pre-tax take home is a little less. It's the subject of another discussion, but this cash-free, debt-free is one of a number of possible transaction types. It is so prevalent, we see almost no other transaction type. It's always used in an asset sale. It's starting to be used almost always in a stock sale as well. But again, that'll be discussions for a later time. And then finally, you get to your take home as you calculate it. And there are differences between asset sale and stock sale. You absolutely need your M&A lawyer, you need your wealth manager, and you need a tax expert in on this process. The process is going to be expensive, but if you're selling for enough and you're maximizing the value and you're taking advantage of all of the kind of tips and tricks to be able to get the most money, it is going to be worth it in gold. You will pay the amount of money you pay your advisor. You will receive many times over. I promised it would be quick, and I try not to bore you. So we tore through all of these. I'll just highlight once again, in your company run without you, you have recurring revenue or the customer's loyal. You have employee retention. And can you produce financials and KPIs quickly, sometimes within 24 hours in the field process. I will leave you with, we have a QR code. Anyone is interested in talking with my team and going through kind of a 12-week, is my business ready in every area, getting evaluation done, and learning the 3-hour version, if not the 12-hour version of this presentation. We're having fun at Zephyr Wine Bar. Thank you, guys.
Hey, thank you, John. Appreciate your efforts here and also just helping us as business owners learn how to maximize our exit in a very strategic way. From a technical standpoint, we're going to be able to send this slide out, and it looks like we've got an offer that we've talked about together, and that's 40% off. What is it? 40% offer to the attendees that participate in their program. So we'll.
Yeah, 40% off discount to all the acquisition IQ and especially the acquisition members that have signed up. So very excited.
So we'll leave you with that. We won't go super far and long into detail, but we just want to say thank you so much for joining us all online and those here today for to learn a little bit about this beautiful location here. To advance your business forward, which also advances the community that you live in forward as well, because our whole thing is to continue to build strong relationships amongst the people in the communities that you serve, and not only just focus in on your business, because we believe in strong relationships and strong culture that can really transform an entire environment. That's why we're doing the national tour, and I've got a few other things. So one, we've got the acquisition IQ national application, and for within the app, that's a national network where you can join other investors, entrepreneurs, and business owners that are all, one, looking to buy companies, number two, looking to sell companies, also investors that are looking for syndicate opportunities to be able to grow their business and also grow their portfolios. We welcome you guys as a part of that network. And lastly, we have our other national tour events. Those tour events are going to be coming in 2 days. We'll be in Sacramento. We'll be interviewing Mark Haney, a serial entrepreneur who's invested in over 50 different companies in Sacramento. He's very well known in that area. You can look him up at Biz. And also we'll be in San Francisco interviewing Tim Boone. He is the founder and CEO of Socratic AI, which is a dual-sided marketplace technology platform for U.S. buyers and also as sellers to be able to list your companies, and also buyers to be able to buy or at least look at the companies by leveraging the financials that have been vetted through artificial intelligence, which will greatly enhance your overall acquisition. So we want to say thank you so much for joining us along the national tour and also here for the kickoff of the Reno, Nevada National Tour launch. Can't wait, and we'll see you guys on the road.